it seems like liberals are finally starting to get a little upset with one Mr. Joe Manchin. One Mr. Joe Manchin, because he's kind of messing up a lot of stuff. Let's stick in a liberal mindset for this segment, okay? Like, I know us progressives, we have our major differences with liberals, and conservatives and the like, but I want to stick in a liberal mindset just for this segment, okay? So you're a liberal Democrat, vote proud Democrat every single time. Think Joe Biden's doing a great job. He half child poverty, which is what the Democrats are, all putting out there. Like, essentially, he's doing a UBI with the child credits. Like, let's just stick in that frame of mind, for this segment, just for this segment. Let's have a little fun with it, okay? So this came up the other day, and I was reading the replies to it because I thought it was really interesting. So let me share this with y'all. This came out April 30th, so 4 or 5 days ago, and it was Joe Manchin has come out against the D.C. statehood bill, dealing a major blow in a 50-50 Senate. Right, so here you go, President Joe Manchin, whatever he says goes. So he came out against D.C. statehood. Now I want to pause and just reflect a little bit. Let's just reflect. I want to read these replies. And this is Brian Tyler Cohen. I think he's a political commentator, daily videos on YouTube and Facebook. Okay, so I think he's kind of right in that liberal space. A lot of liberals probably follow him. So I want to see what they were saying back to this, because my response is pretty clear. You have to twist Joe Manchin's arm. You have to go to his state. You have to actually put pressure on his seat. Like, that's how you're actually going to get him to change his mind on some of this stuff. But let's see what they have to say about, given the same information, right? Given the same circumstances and situation that the Democrats find themselves in with Joe Manchin in a 50-50 split Senate. Let's see what their remedy, their solution to this issue is. So first off, Brian Tyler Cohen starts it off, right under his own tweet. He says, "We need more Democratic senators. I've created a fund through Act Blue to donate to the top voter education registration groups in the 8 states with crucial 2022 Senate races. This work must start now." And then, links to Act Blue for more fundraising. Blakely, shout out Blakely from It's a Smalls World with Christian Smalls, comes out and, has a correct response to this, actually. Says, "Well, I guess that's it then. Biden seems to have no interest in arm twisting, and progressives aren't going to do shit. So that's probably the end of this, since President Joe Manchin doesn't like it." Spot on with that reaction. But so let's get into the liberals' reaction, okay? So this is what the liberals are saying. Joe Manchin opposes D.C. statehood because it would remove his ability to blackmail both sides to his personal advantage. I mean, of course that's true. He wants to toe that line between being a Republican and a Democrat, and he loves having all this power right now. So that's not a false response. I think my critique would go a lot further than that, but that's what he decided to put out there. And this Dr. Josie Diaz says he doesn't want to be irrelevant, and it's his ego being the one that holds the cards. We need to get at least 2 more Democratic senators to make him irrelevant. 2 more. We just need more Democrats in there. And this is the argument that's being made by the liberals. So Joe Manchin doesn't support common sense gun reform, doesn't support universal health care, doesn't support the Green New Deal, doesn't support DC statehood, doesn't support any of the filibuster in order to have a functioning government. How is he different than the GOP? Yo, that's what we've been saying as progressives. But here's the bigger issue. And I can keep going. A lot of these are, we need more Democrats. We need more Democrats. We need to elect more Democrats. And this is the message that's being put out there. My question is, then why were y'all, as the Democratic Party, as people that were fundraising for the Democrats, people that were advocating for people to go out and vote for the Democrats, especially in the Senate after Joe Biden had already won the presidency, and y'all were going out and trying to get more people to come out and vote, right? Get out the vote actions and everything like that. And y'all said, if y'all get us a Democratic majority, we got the Senate, we got the House, we got the presidency, we're going to pass all this stuff. We're going to pass it all. Fast forward 3 or 4 months, and what are they already saying? The liberals. They're already saying 2022. We have to look ahead. Joe Manchin opposes this stuff. What are we going to do? We have to look ahead. 2022. Get more Democrats elected. You see, this is where the liberals and progressives just have a completely different perspective on the world, okay? For me, and for a lot of other progressives, just saying, oh, we need to elect more Democrats in 2022, you're skipping over a lot of suffering and a lot of legislation and a lot of things that could be passed before that. You're totally absolving Joe Biden of his role as the president of the United States with the bully pulpit and public opinion behind him. He's supposed to go out there and ensure that these things can pass, right? The Equality Act, H.R. 1, George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, any of these things that can't be put into these reconciliation bills. It's Joe Biden's job to go out and get Joe Manchin to say he supports getting rid of the filibuster completely or some type of reform that's actually going to allow the Democrats to get something done. That's up to Joe Manchin, Joe Biden. But liberals, they skip over that part, right? They skip over where they would have to critique Joe Biden, where they would have to critique the Democratic Party. And they go, oh, it's on us as, people who are struggling in the midst of a pandemic. A lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of people lost their savings, people living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, it was half of workers were living paycheck to paycheck before COVID. So who even knows what that number is now? Definitely increased. So they say it's on the voters to get more Democrats elected in 2022. Completely absolving Joe Biden of his role as president, and also going back on what they just went out and told voters before Georgia, which is if you get Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff elected, we will get these things passed and have a functioning government again. They didn't put an asterisk over there and say, well, just if Joe Manchin and some of these other corporate Democrats, just if they want it. If they want it, then we'll get it done. No. They said the Democratic Party will get these things done. So you can't have it both ways. You can't say, on the one hand, we're Democrats. We're all Democrats, and we're going to be pushing, if we get this 50-50 Senate, we'll pass these things. And then 3 or 4 months later, when any type of roadblock comes up, it's, what are we going to do? Joe Manchin. It's Joe Manchin. It's Kyrsten Sinema. No. Those are Democrats. They're in your party. And you went out and said, if we get a 50-50 Senate, we'll get these things passed. You didn't say, we'll have a 48-50 Senate, and then maybe Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema will go along with it if they feel like it. Y'all didn't say that. So that's why to voters, when you try and go back to that same voter who you told, if we get the Democratic majority, we're going to pass these things. We'll get that minimum wage. We'll get the Equality Act. We'll get voting rights. We'll get all that stuff. You can't go back to that same person and say, well, we said that, but we didn't take into account Joe Manchin, Kyrsten Sinema, and some of these corporate Democrats. See, that doesn't land. And this is why the Democrats, just like in 2010, get wiped out in the midterms because they promise these things to people. And then when they don't come to fruition, it's just these individual senators or House members. It's just their individual fault. No, you have to own that as a Democratic Party. Liberals, do you understand that you have to own these people because they're in your party? So you can't count Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema and the corporate Democrats when it's convenient to you and discount them as some other rogue Democratic senators when it's inconvenient to you. And I think that's something that we need to make sure we're speaking more about and actually making plain, because that's the unfiltered truth. That's the truth of the situation we're in. And so I also want to share this story, which I saw recently, because this plays exactly into what I and us at the takeover have been saying, a lot of progressives have been saying for a long time. So recently in his address, was it State of the Union address or whatever, Joe Biden came out and said he has the backs of transgender kids, right? And that's a really big thing to come out and say, especially, on the heels of the Trump administration and the Republicans. And on the heels of everything going on in the states legislatures right now with all these anti-trans bills being passed. And so this is from 19 The News. They say, as Biden vows to have transgender kids' backs, advocates want more concrete actions. And let's just read a little bit of this, just a little bit, to get a sense of what I'm talking about here. Vanessa Nichols didn't watch President Joe Biden's address to a joint session of Congress on Wednesday night, but she made sure to catch a clip of the speech later. She specifically wanted to see the part where Biden addressed transgender youth like her 12-year-old son, Dylan. To all transgender Americans watching at home, especially the young people, you're so brave, Biden said. I want you to know your president has your back. Nichols felt a rush of emotions. Like I would too, especially after 4 years of Trump, right? If you're in this liberal mindset and you're sitting there thinking, okay, Joe Biden said something good, so, I feel good about that. I'm sure he's working so hard behind the scenes to get that done. But here's what was interesting. She said, for me, it was this huge. Wow, listen to this. This is the president. This is a leader. This is inclusive, she said. But then after I watched it, I was like, what does that mean? What does that mean that he has our kids back? In November 2020, Nicholas and Dylan left their home in Florida and moved to Costa Rica after state lawmakers nearly axed gender-affirming care for trans youth. With new legislation that keeps being discussed every year, and because that legislation gets so much media attention, kids talk about it, especially at the middle school age. Okay. So, as this, there's bills barring transgender kids from playing sports going through out a lot of states right now. Biden has promised to sign the Equality Act within the first 100 days in office. The White House said the president still has the bill as a top priority, but is waiting for Congress to send it to his desk. The bill has cleared the House, but awaits a vote in the evenly divided Senate, where it would need 60 votes to pass. The White House did not respond to a request to comment for this article. So this, right, the Equality Act, isn't the end all be all, but it will be, something to allow, there to be a federal law kind of superseding a lot of these state laws that are being talked about right now. But if, Biden will always say, I have your kids' backs, and liberals always come out and say, you need to make sure you're going out and vote because you're voting for marginalized people, right? You're not only voting for yourself, you're voting, you have to remember and vote for these marginalized people like, trans kids. But now they're saying, oh, we have to wait till 2022 because there's nothing we can do about it now. So you're just going to offset all the suffering that's going on with these trans kids right now in 2021, and you're putting it off to 2022 like, well, okay, we just need to get more seats and we'll worry about it later because there's nothing that can be done right now. But Joe Biden just said he has these kids' backs. Well, if you have their back, what are you going to do about Joe Manchin, who's the one standing in the way of some of these things being passed? Nothing. Crickets. There's no critique there. And see, that's the issue when it comes to liberals, is there's no critique there. There's no next step. For us, the next step is, okay, well, now the pressure's on Joe Biden to ensure that he can hold his Democratic caucus like they went out and told voters they would do. He can hold that caucus to ensure that there's a filibuster reform or there's some type of reform we can get these things passed. The liberals don't take that next step, right? And then of course on the other side you have the conservatives who, they'll they want equality in sports, right? But they won't support health care given to these trans kids so that there can be fairness and equality in the sport. So they're just going to ban trans kids from playing sport. Like that's their solution. And of course, that's the wrong solution. Of course, there's so many other ways you can go about actually, ensuring there's equality and fairness in sports. And of course, all of a sudden, people care so much. People care so much about elementary sports now, park district sports. Like that's also so of course, it's just virtue signaling to the base, right? That's for the most part what a lot of these bills are. They just want to signal to their base. They just want to, ensure that they can crack down more and more on, the freedom that they always say, they love so much and want people to have, except when it comes to the government, getting, the government being used for their advantage, and then, for their ideology and what they want, and then they're okay with the government being involved with everything. But when it's something against, something that they like, then they're like, okay, we want small government. We don't want the government intervening with our freedom. So those are kind of the three sides in the discourse, right? Those are the kind of three sides in the discourse. So I kind of just want to walk through with y'all the liberal mindset, the liberal ideology, and why they just don't take that next step. They never do. It's always, okay, well, we just need to vote better. We just need to vote better. And Joe Manchin, Kyrsten Sinema, they're Democrats, but now that they actually won the Senate, now that the Democrats have a majority, now it's, okay, well, you can't blame the Democrats because it's Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. They're Democrats. Sorry to break it to you, but you got to own who's in your party. And you got to bear the consequences and ramifications of people like Joe Manchin, who are in the Democratic Party, but don't seem to have an interest in actually advancing the country forward and signing on to some of this legislation.